Welcome to the Esports Classroom Podcast. Again, little project. We're just going to be interviewing coaches, both at high school and collegiate level, sharing out what they do with the programs and all that. So tonight we have Nate with us. So I'm going to let you introduce yourself, Nate. Where are you right now? What are you doing? But also, where have you been in the past?
Awesome. Yeah. So my name is Nate Rodemeyer. I am the current head esports coach at Marshalltown Community College. This is my fourth year at MCC. Before that, I was a teacher and high school coach in Williamsburg, Iowa with the Raiders. And I've also served on the executive board for the Iowa High School Esports Association in the past.
So obviously, I've known you for a little while because I've been part of the Iowa High School Esports Association since 2020. Um, so kind of let's go back to that. Let's go Williamsburg for a second. How did you get the program started there? How many students you have? Like again, like how big was the school?
Yeah. So I was in Williamsburg, Iowa. I started coaching esports there in 2019. Our principal reached out to myself and one of my colleagues, Nick Law, and said, "Hey, I got an email from this Iowa High School Esports Association thing, and they're trying to get esports going. And you two guys were the ones that I thought of that would want to do this." And so November 2019 is kind of when we got the messaging, and then the idea was that we were going to start in 2020, early 2020. And so I knew that we were going to be playing Rainbow Six Siege in our first season, which at the time I had never played before. I'd heard of it, and I'd
Yep.
played past Tom Clancy games, but I never played Siege. And so I used time over winter break to kind of learn the game a little bit and prepare. The program started with just that one varsity team. I'd say I probably had about 8 students on the roster then. And then, of course, I had other students that were interested in other games. I had some Smash players in the room. I had some Overwatch players in the room. But it was mostly focusing on that first Siege team. The entire school of Williamsburg Junior Senior High only has about 300 to 400 students in there. It is a 7 through 12 building. And so it was a pretty small school district. And yeah, that's how I got started. Of course, being that it was early 2020, we got 2 weeks into our actual
Yep.
first set of competition and everything shut down. And that was actually the point where I started transitioning into assisting with the association itself. So back then, in the Wild West days, they did not have a bylaws or any sort of official documentation yet. They had just gotten accepted or were working through the process of being filed as a nonprofit. And so during shutdown, there was a group of us that volunteered to meet and come up with those bylaws and start getting some of those pieces in place. And so I did that during the spring of 2020. And then in the 2021 year, I served as the president-elect of the association. And then in 2021, 2022, I served as the second president of the IHSCA.
And I got lucky enough to join the fall of 2020 with Nevada. Obviously, I will tout the work that has gone into producing what the Iowa High School Esports Association is because I think it's been great for my kids. I think we have a top-notch statewide program. I think every school in Iowa who's doing esports should be a part of it, and we do have a lot of them. So again, great work that you guys have done. I know I enjoyed it from the start. You kind of mentioned one of the things, and so we talked with Lauren James last, and I think this is going to be a common thing here with a lot of coaches. You're coaching a title that you didn't really play.
Yep.
So you had to figure out kind of how to coach this, even though you were not the content expert in the sense of how to play the game.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, and I mean, for anybody that knows anything about the games that are out there, having Siege be my first game when I knew nothing
Yeah.
about it was quite the game. That game is a void of information. And, back then the game had far less operators. It had a few less maps, less utility and gadgets. But still, there were about 60 operators at the time across attack and defense, probably 8 or 9 different maps. And I really appreciate and like that game, but it was a lot to take under. When I first started coaching, my main goal, and I think a lot of high school coaches start here, especially if they didn't have traditional coaching background, is, I'm going to provide a safe environment and a structure for these students to participate. I'm going to hope that they gain some value by being part of a team. And if we can do anything beyond that, that's great. So when I started coaching Siege, I could barely put an attack or defense plan together. I didn't know that there were different roles that the operators had, all of that sort of stuff. And so that's come with time well after being starting it at Williamsburg.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's like I didn't play Overwatch before we had our first Overwatch season. So we played it a lot and I still don't know the characters' names. I just call them the hamster ball dude. I think that's kind of a thing too, is like what you wanted the program. So We'll focus just a little bit more on the high school. Like, so what were the biggest things, biggest positives that you took away from your high school program that you were able to do?
Sure. I mean, I think the number one thing is probably going to be pretty common across high school esports programs, which is that we were able to engage a group of students that wasn't involved in a lot of other extracurriculars. My school, or Williamsburg, was small enough that I did have a fair amount of overlap between fine arts students and some traditional athletes. But I also had quite a few students that were only doing esports as their extracurricular. And so I think that was one of the biggest value pieces that came out of that. And then, of course, some of the soft and even technical skills they learn by being a part of something like that and really buying into what it means to be a team.
Yep. I think those are great things. So you have now moved on to collegiate.
Mhm.
So how did that happen? And how is that game going that first season being a college esports coach as opposed to high school, which obviously should be very different?
Yeah, it was very different. When I started getting into it, I had no idea what that transition was going to be like. The way I found MCC, so I was kind of at a point in my teaching career where I'm like, I really like being at Williamsburg and I love that community, but I was really enjoying the esports coaching that I was doing, and I had kind of a couple weeks before I applied for the job or knew it existed. I mentioned that to my wife, and I said, if I could find a way to do this esports thing full time, I think I'd try to do it. And then I'm from Marshalltown, and so 2 weeks later, I saw the job posting, or my wife found it, and she's like, "What about this?" And so I applied for the job, and kind of the rest is history. But the transition was big. A lot of differences. Obviously, one of the big differences is that in high school, there's not really a large push to recruit your players, right? You just work
Yep.
with the student athletes that you have in the building. I guess you can go fish in the hallway for students that you think would be part of it or would benefit from playing on a team and getting some of those things. But it's entirely night and day different. Obviously, being at a community college, recruitment is a huge priority for the program. And so, really learning how to do that. And then, yeah, that first year, the Marshalltown team, we had 22 students. We only competed in Super Smash Brothers, Rainbow Six Siege, Mario Kart, and Overwatch at the time. We only had one Overwatch team, one Siege team, three Smash players, and two Mario Kart players, and that was it. Three of those students had been recruited the year before by Andrew Goforth, who was the kind of the founder of the program. He was part of some preliminary conversations before I got hired.
Mm.
He did a lot of the work for getting the PCs and kind of the furnishings and working out the logistics. But then him and I were together basically from day one in terms of actually running a program and coaching it. And so everybody else was a walk-on. We just advertised on campus what we were doing, and it kind of started rolling from there.
Yeah, that recruiting piece has to be kind of interesting because, again, yeah, as a high school coach, I have the kids in the building. I just kind of make them aware of it and then hopefully lure them in the door. I'm lucky in my district because I can control the email. So I can just email every kid. If I really wanted to, I could change their computer background and say, hey, join esports. I
Yeah.
won't do that. I won't use my powers for bad. So that recruiting piece has to be kind of a big thing with that. So what titles do you all play right now then after you've been there for a little while?
Yeah. So yeah, again, I gave you guys the background on year one with the 22 students and the four games we played, and getting ready for tonight. I had to actually write down all the things that we do so I didn't forget. So right now I've got 91 students. We play Call of Duty Black Ops 6. We play Fortnite in both builds and zero builds. We play League of Legends. I have a Madden NFL player. I have a bunch of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe players. We have two Marvel Rivals teams of varsity and a JV. We have two Overwatch 2 teams, also of varsity and a JV. Two Siege teams, also of varsity and a JV. In Rocket Leagues, the primary format we play is 3v3, but there's also a twos format that we're in as well. I've got three different Street Fighter 6 players. I've got about 18 Super Smash Brothers players, and we play that in both a 1v1 format and a crew battle format. And then I've got two Valorant teams, a varsity and a JV.
And so, how many of them are getting scholarships or some sort of financial assistance to play?
That's a good question. Every varsity student that I have, so if I were to run that down really quickly, I think it would be about 40, 45 of them are getting at least some level of scholarship money to play for the team. And so that's been a huge priority for us, trying to make sure that we can give that to as many students as possible. Obviously, the program's gotten larger than I ever expected it to, so that's been an ongoing challenge of trying to make
Yeah.
sure that our scholarship budgets are going up and doing fundraising so that we can give more students scholarship money to be a part of it. But I'd say, right around half or just over half of the team is getting some form of scholarship to play.
And that's awesome. I think because I know you have a couple of my former students from Nevada
Mhm.
have been there, and I've been pushing a couple kids I have now or had last year to look at Marshalltown just because it is a thing where, again, it's an opportunity for them to go to school, get some assistance with that, and continue doing something they're good at, which is esports. Um, so how do practices work then for you guys? How are you guys doing this at Marshalltown with the practices at the college level?
Yeah, so year one was a lot different where we basically had varsity practices and JV practice. Well, I guess we didn't have any JV back then, but we had practices daily. And we'd practice for about 2 hours each day. We quickly outgrew that, both space-wise and numbers-wise. And so each team, the varsity and the JV teams, and across all the game titles, they have 2 3-hour practices a week. So they're getting 6 hours of dedicated, structured time with coaches and captains, and then each game has at least one match a week, maybe more depending on how many formats they play in or what level they play in. And so that's kind of how we do that, right? So we have, all of our PC teams that are rotating through that lab. We have an enormous lab. We have 25 PCs, but I've got probably 50, 60 PC players. And so we have to rotate that space through. Console players is about another 30, 35, 40 players. And so it's really kind of utilizing both spaces that we have to make sure that everybody can get in for practice time without crowding the space or, not giving each team the respect it deserves in the time that they need. Um, each one of our teams has a coach for the most part. Not every single title that I rattled off does, but we've really tried to bring on additional title coaches using our operational budget so that almost every single game that we offer has one of those content experts, as you mentioned, because we certainly, as head coaches or decks or whatever you want to refer to us as, we
Yep.
can't we can't do it all. And if our students are lucky, we have one game that's kind of our game, and then the other games is more us in a supporting role. And so we have title coaches for Call of Duty, for Fortnite, for Mario Kart, for Rivals, for Overwatch, for Siege, Rocket League, Smash, and Valorant. So there's a couple that I did not rattle off, but for the most part, we've got, I would say 80, 85% of our games covered with at least one person who's kind of the expert for that game.
That's a great thing. I know because like you get mentioned so many titles, and I'm thinking about that. I'm like, there's no way you could do it at the high school just because again, a lot of programs I know are one or two people at most. I'm trying to worry about spring already when we might have three titles and I got two coaches. I'm like, well,
Yep.
that's one and a half titles per coach. And how much space do we have? So I
Right.
think so. What are those kind of like the biggest like things I guess you've learned as a coach, making that transition from high school to college as a coach of esports? Any
Um,
practices or any of that?
So I guess, one of the other reasons that we did the less practice time, because 6 hours doesn't sound like a lot, but shockingly, these students will play their game outside of practice time.
Yep.
So our first year, when they were getting probably 10, 12, 15 hours of structured practice a week, they were still putting in another 15, 20 hours, most of them on top of that. And so we knew that that wasn't going to be a problem. And so we cut back the number of required practices, knowing full well, just by monitoring our Discord server or seeing who's in the space, that people are playing and practicing outside of that. So one of the big things that we learned is providing, good fundamentals coaching when we're directly in instruction with them, as well as a lot of what I'd call like mental resilience coaching. That's a huge part of
Yep.
any performer, but in esports, it's so big because the physical component's not there. And so teaching them how to manage their emotions or have logical decision making or how to have respectful disagreements with teammates or even things like building up communication and the ability to strategize and scout teams. Like so many of those things are so important. And so when the coaches are working with the students, a lot of it is focusing on those different things. And then really trying to get the students to a place where they can continue doing some of that stuff independently, right? Like if I teach my Mario Kart team how to scout, I don't have to sit there and watch them do it. They just
Yep.
know what to do. We have a database where we're collecting all of that stuff. And the nice thing is I don't have to go poke them over and over again to get them to do it. They're just doing it because they see the value in it. They know how that can benefit them as a team, and they're really bought into the program. So they want to do that stuff for themselves and their teammates.
I think all those skills you mentioned are ones that are going to apply well outside of esports. So it's just applying them esports, but then they can do it beyond that. And I don't think a lot of people get that those are the skills we're really focusing on. It's not just learning all the details of the game; it's those skills that matter the most. The
Hmm.
resilience, you said that, and I remember Lauren said the same thing. I mean, we've seen it before. We've seen kids that are really good at the game, but when they start competing and they start losing, they just uh you know they rage quit in a sense,
Yeah.
but you can't do that in a tournament.
Mm-mm.
Unfortunately, we've seen that at the state tournament before, where some kids
Yeah.
have just, it's that mental ability there to handle, like when you're losing, when you're getting beat down, be able to come back from that. I even saw that this week with my team. We had a loss in Smash Brothers that I wasn't. I mean, I was expecting to be close, and we got beat bad. And I'm like, okay, what are my students going to do? Because we got to win next week to
Right.
have a chance at the playoffs. So it is that resilience, I think, is a key feature we see a lot.
Right. And like you said, that's a life skill. So many of the things that we work on in esports programs have a much broader application. And yeah, I mean, I will work on individual game content, knowledge, strategies with my teams, but to be honest, especially at the collegiate level and with the kind of reputation the college has gained, I have a lot of players that come in with what I would call high game knowledge or high raw mechanical
Yep.
skill. They don't need as much work with those things. They just almost need to be subtly guided on what to work on next or where their weaknesses are to shore those up. But a lot of it is the other things. It's the organizational pieces, it's the mental toughness
Yep.
pieces, it is managing, it's a huge part of it is managing your emotions, right? And we even have situations where it's not managing frustration because you're down or you're losing. It might be a situation where you're winning fairly comfortably and you're trying to make sure that your students, your team doesn't like blow that away because they're not focused anymore. We see that
Yep.
from time to time as well. And so all of those things are a huge part of what we're really trying to work on them with.
Yeah. That content knowledge kids come in with, like, I've been playing Smash Brothers since before my students were born, but
Hmm.
they know terms I don't. Like Tekken. First time I heard that come out of my kid's mouth, I'm like, okay, gotta go Google this. All right, that's what you guys are talking about. Okay, you guys are gonna
Yep.
run practice now because I don't know that term.
Mhm.
So obviously you've had good experience. So what are those kind of the biggest things you've taken away, or the biggest positives, the biggest wins you've had as a coach, or the things you would say, hey, this is why we do esports?
Okay. There's a lot of good options there. I mean, obviously, records wise, we've had a couple of really cool wins. The program's been very successful. We have 12 championships to date, and
Yep.
some of them have been really special. The first season that we ever competed, we had a young lady named Amber Lathers she was a local student. She showed up to campus, said, "Hey, can I play Mario Kart?" And we said, "Yeah, of course." And she went out 28-0 and won the national championship, and that was amazing. We've had four Overwatch wins consecutively, so back to back to back to back. We had three of those guys won all 4 semesters that they were in there. The other two graduated and rotated out. And then most recently, we had a huge win in another huge win in Mario Kart, where we played in the Collegiate Karting League. And so that's pretty cool because that's not just other junior colleges, which is where we typically compete.
Yep.
That's got some big four name schools in there, including some FBS football schools. So that was pretty cool. But the bigger thing beyond that, in terms of the wins or the successes, really is kind of the way you see those students develop and kind of becoming the young adults they're working to be. Again, going back to Amber, she's a great example of that. The year before the esports program started, she kind of was aimless. She was getting C's and D's in college. She wasn't really motivated, and she immediately turned into a straight A student. She's now on scholarship playing at Buena Vista University on their Mario Kart roster. She's getting her degree in animation and she's doing phenomenal. And that success story just got repeated with so many players that have been through our program. There's another young man named Jesus Silva who was part of our siege team the first year. He was our captain. After Jesus graduated, he also went to play for a 4 year. He's playing up there right now. He's also managing his own semi-professional organization within Siege. And he's also coaching for us as well. So he's incredibly busy. But we just have so many players that have had stories like that. And even just students that came in as 17, 18-year-olds who really didn't know what they wanted to do and really needed a lot of those life skills and seeing them leave with those and move on and be successful in the workplace or being successful at a 4 year has been probably the biggest wins.
I think the lives have been changed to the esports. I mean,
Mhm.
people don't understand that's something that
Oh,
happens. I mean, those kids are different than they were, and their lives are different because they joined a team to play video games. Um, Anything else you want to share? Because we kind of covered a lot, but is there anything else you want to share? I'll give you a chance to do that.
Um, sure. I mean, I guess the thing that I would probably share is, you just mentioned, Patrick, that like giving the students an opportunity like this changes their lives. But I think, and you would probably speak for this too, being a part of esports has also changed my life in some pretty significant ways.
Yeah.
Obviously, I went from K-12 to collegiate. It gave me a chance to move back to my hometown, and those are all great things. But just a lot of the skills that I've developed, a lot of the impact that the students that I've gotten to work with, both at Williamsburg and at MCC, have had on me. There's so many of those students that I still keep in touch with them now, and I keep tabs on how they're doing. And I'm just so grateful that I got to be a part of their journeys as well. And so I think when it's something that you are doing and you're truly passionate about it, then that impact definitely goes in both directions.
Yep. I would agree with you 100% on there. Just, I mean, there's a reason why I've two of the, what now, 6 seasons of esports coaching I've done on Page is because I enjoy it so much, but it gives it back to me. And it's still, I will always say this is the best thing I've done in education. And I've been in 4 districts, 22 years. It's easily number one.
Mhm.
Um, well, thank you for sharing that out. I really like your perspective because you've been at the high school level, you've been at the state level, college level. You were part of the beginning of our state league, which I still think is one of the best state leagues in the country.
Yep.
And I'll have other states come on and tell me their league is better, but I will fight them on that. So thank you again, Nate, for being part of this. And I hope if you're listening or watching, stay tuned. We'll have lots more people on. So hopefully you can learn, take some away. Thank you.
Thank you.